Tell them, say, it's your winning season. It's your winning season. It's your win.
Good morning. Welcome to A Winning Moment with the Wins. We're excited this morning. We get to talk about part 2 of leadership. Leadership is not easy. Through experience, we know that it's not easy. And so I have here with me my lovely wife that's been leading with me for over 17 years in the ministry. And then we've been married for over almost 30 years. And so we're excited that we get to continue our conversation about leadership.
Yes. So good morning again. We just want to welcome you to A Winning Moment with the Wins. I know we're going to need to start this over. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
You could have kept going, man.
I messed up.
But you could have kept going when you start talking out, because he can cut stuff out.
Well, let's start over.
Okay. I don't have to always introduce you because, you're part of the show now. We've been doing this for a minute.
Oh, I understand that.
Okay.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Good morning. Welcome to A Winning Moment with the Wins. I'm excited because we get to talk about leadership part 2 to continue our last conversation. And my wife here is with me for almost 17 years in the ministry. We've been leading the people of God. And then we've been married for almost 30 years next year. And so we've been together and leading together. And so we get to just kind of pick up where we left off on our last episode about leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, leading.
Yeah, it's good to have you all with us on this morning to A Winning Moments with the Wins. But before we get into that, I would like to also welcome you to Spread the Word Ministries at 6206 Northwest Ferris Avenue. We start services at 11 a.m. So if you're in the area, please come out and be with us at Spread the Word Ministries, 6206 Northwest Ferris Avenue. But like Pastor was saying, we're going to pick up from part 2 with the Winning Moments with the Wins, talking about leadership. We have been doing this for, like you said, 17 years, leading a ministry.
Yeah.
And so in leadership, we've learned a lot.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot.
Experience
Yes.
is your best teacher.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. We've made some decisions that didn't really go the way that we expected it to go, but even in that, like you said, experiences is the best teacher.
Yeah.
And so we're just grateful about God even choosing us to be leaders of His people, because He could have chosen anybody else. And so we don't take that lightly or take it for granted, because leading people is important. When God put you in that position, it's important.
Yeah, souls are at stake.
Right.
And not just the people that you're leading, but their family members.
Right.
You're going to put a taste in their mouth about God, about their church experiences. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure they have a great church experience. And so my role, I started out as a pastor and just leading Spread the Word ministry.
Right.
And then when I got elevated to overseer, my role changed. I began to lead other pastors.
Right.
And that's a whole nother experience. That's a whole nother issue when you're leading leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're leading leaders, you have to talk. You have to look at things from a whole different perspective.
Right.
And then you also find out if leaders can humble themselves, because some leaders can't humble themselves.
Right.
They're not humble. And so what I love about God is God have given us a way to receive what we want, and that is through sowing and reaping. And so if you need something in the spirit world, you got to sow what you need.
Right.
And a lot of people think that that's just concerning money. But the Bible says if you need friends, you got to show yourself friendly.
Right.
And so when you're sowing friendship, that means you're going to reap friendship.
Right.
And so I've learned how to sow what I need, to sow what I need. And so I said all that to say this. some leaders want people to serve them, but they don't want to serve nobody.
Right.
Yeah, they want people under them to be humble and submit to them, but they're not humble and don't want to submit to anybody.
Right.
And so it's a challenge, and it's different. I understand it's different, and so God allowed us to and blessed us to build our ministry from the ground. And what I mean by build our ministry, when we started Spread the Word, there were no trustees, there were no deacons, there were no deaconettes, and nothing. The hospitality team, greeting and usher ministry, we built that.
Right.
And so there were no praise team, there were no choir, no brotherhood. And so women ministry, men's ministry. And so we had to build that from the ground. So we did not come into an organization where all of that was already established.
Right.
And so we had to try to change the mindset of the people to the vision that God has shown us. But one of the things we had to do, and one of the challenges is we had to build the boards and build the ministry teams from the ground, and that took patience. God had to send the right people, and we had to train them and teach them, and it took patience for them to see the vision and be committed. And so it's a different challenge than going to a church or taking over a church that's already established and already have history. And so the history of Spread the Word ministry, we built it.
Right. We built it with the assistance of God.
Right.
Like you said, it took patience and it took prayer.
Oh,
because
we had
to do a lot of praying, ensuring that, okay, God, because we know the scripture that God adds to the church daily as he see fit.
Right.
And so we had to pray that, and then pray and ask God as he's adding, then show us who these, where these people fit as far as in the ministry to help take the load off of us. Because like you said, when the ministry was birthed, it was birthed, and the operation of the ministry, day-to-day operation, was us.
Right, you and I.
And our children.
Right.
And so, because, our children taught Sunday school, and they did all of that. And ushered and all of that. Praise and worship, all of it.
Right.
So, but we had to, like I said, we had to do a lot of praying, and seeking God as he was sending the people to make sure that we would place them where God has said they needed to be placed.
Right.
And then I wanted to kind of go back to where you was talking about the leaders, because you really mentioned it, and that's what God impressed on me, is that when you were talking about leading leaders, when you're talking about leading pastors, they have to have a spirit. They have to have that humility. Yeah. And then they have to also have that humble spirit. Right. They have to be submissive, and then they have to have humility, because we pray and ask God, give the people a submissive spirit. Let them be submitted unto the things that you've called us to do and the things that you're telling us to give to them. But as leaders, as a leader, those leaders need to be submissive, and they need to be humbled. Right. Now, because that's what they're requiring from their parishioners. Right. So the same thing that you're requiring from your parishioners is the same thing that you should be giving out as well. Right. Like you said, we should be, because we're all, and ultimately we're all servant. That's all that we are.
Exactly. Yeah. God have called us to all to serve. Be servants. Yeah. I am the chief servant here at Spread the Word. I have different responsibilities. You have different responsibilities. But it's not beneath us to stand at the door on a Sunday morning and welcome the people in, or to grab a broom and sweep the hallway and mop and clean the restroom. Yeah, exactly. And I enjoy that. Right. And the people, they'll come up and say, "No, overseer, you ain't got to do that," but they don't understand.
Come and take the broom and the mop out of your hand.
Yeah, but they don't know we kind of enjoy that. Or when you're trying
to bring something in and put it in the office, they'll come and get it out your hand. Look at you like, "Oh, First Lady, no, why are you? Don't you? You see what I'm saying?" But
I mean, this is not beneath me. Right. I can do this. I'm okay with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, ministry is a joy. So if I could pause and drop a nugget on a young pastor out there who's building their church, let me share this with you. Don't try to add ministry teams to
Come on.
where they're not needed yet, or you're not grown in that area.
That's right.
For instance, don't try to start a men's ministry and there are no men's there to start it. You don't try to start an outreach ministry if there's nobody to do it. God will send the people. God knows your heart. Pray and ask God to send people with a passion for outreach ministry, because that's what you desire to do, and you know that He called you to do that, and He'll send the people. We had that happen to us. We started out as an outreach ministry.
We did.
We started out doing concerts.
Yep.
We did a praise in the park.
Right.
We was feeding people and giving clothes to people. So Spread the Word Ministry actually started out as an outreach ministry.
Right.
And then God had us to plant it as a church.
Right.
But then we had a desire for outreach ministry. And so it wasn't until a few years ago
That's right.
that God really sent someone here with
the
a heart and a passion for
it.
outreach ministry. And so now, because they have the heart and the passion, we get to feed over 250 people a month
Home cooked meal.
home cooked meals. And so we now go to the homeless.
Right.
We go out and we send our van and our bus out,
That's
and
right.
our outreach ministry go out, feed them, pray with them, offer them
Clothe them.
salvation, clothe them, and do. Those are the things that we had a desire to do,
Right.
but we didn't have the people to do
to
it.
do it at the time.
Yeah, and so God ascends it, and so young pastor, man, y'all just do what you can do, and God will send the people.
Right.
If I can share anything with you, love the people of God. Love them with all your heart. Love them with all your might. And when you're dealing with young people, be transparent. Be transparent. I mean, we've all fallen short of the glory of God. None of us are perfect. And so don't set yourself up like you was perfect or you still perfect, and don't talk down to them where they're at, because that's not what Jesus did.
Right.
He meets us where we're at.
That's right.
He meet us where we're at, and then he picks us up from there and love on us and love and nurtures us back to where we're supposed to be. And when people see that in you, that'll draw people to you. Your peers may not agree with it. Your denomination may not agree with it, but that's
But ultimately, it's what God says.
it's what God says,
because you wanna-
and the people will be drawn
Exactly.
unto you.
Yeah.
People will be drawn unto you
Yeah.
because of your love and your nurturing.
Exactly.
And then as you building leaders, make room. Don't make room. Maybe that's a bad word, bad choice of word. But be okay if they fail. Be okay if they don't get it right the first time.
Right.
Because it's training, it's teaching, it's learning, and be okay. Don't drop the hammer on them because they messed up the first time.
Right.
They need training. And always teach them. You cannot expect them to do things right if you haven't taught them the way to do it.
Right.
And so you have to teach them.
Mm-hmm.
And so before we ordain a deacon, we taught them what a deacon is supposed to do, the duties and responsibilities
Right.
from the Bible. Not knocking denominations, but from the Bible. From the Bible. And so you just can't expect people to know things.
Right.
You know, you have to teach them. And then once you teach them your expectations, then you can inspect their actions. Let me
Right.
say that again. Once you teach them your expectations, then you can inspect their actions.
Right.
Until you teach them your expectations,
Right.
then you have nothing to inspect.
Right. Because they have nothing to go off of.
Exactly.
Right. And when you were dropping that nugget, what came to me was, use what you have. And when you're starting a ministry, use what you have. And then as God add to the church, then you can begin to incorporate those different ministries that God has already placed on your heart. Mm-hmm. Because if you go ahead of God, what you're actually going to do is cause chaos and cause confusion. You know, you're
Right.
going to come up against a wall. Really, is
Right.
what's going to happen, because it'll start for a moment
And it'll stop.
then it'll stop.
Yeah,
It'll
God's
start-
timing is everything.
Exactly.
God's timing,
exactly.
and
It'll
I
start-
see that. I see a lot of people.
Exactly.
They start well, and then they fizzle out because
Right.
it wasn't the right timing.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily that it wasn't the right program or the right ministry. That's what's on your heart.
Right.
But the timing wasn't right.
Exactly.
It wasn't the right season
Exactly.
for it. And so let me ask you this, Lady Wins. How hard is it to correct and influence others to do well?
How hard is it to correct? Well, you know, it takes.
Because let's be honest, as leaders, we're called to correct people.
We are. Exactly.
And I see that's a challenge with some leaders. They will not correct their parishioners or won't correct their leaders. They find that it's an issue and it's a problem. So how hard is it? Because from a pastor position, it's a little easier. From an overseer position, when you're talking to other pastors and trying to help them, you have to be more. You have to influence them. You have to encourage them on it more. Not saying, Pastor, you wrong and blah 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 blah.
Right.
But there's a certain way that we do things.
Right.
Even in our district, when we're having district conferences and we're getting ready to go to our state conference, and so there's protocol and there's way that we do things, and there are going to be other pastors and leaders there that I may in fact have to correct, and so I don't drop the hammer on them.
Yeah,
but you correct them in love.
Exactly.
You correct them in love, and you encourage them
Right.
that, listen, if we're going to do things with the spirit of excellence, which we will and which we should, then this is the way we do things.
Right.
And so once they see the result, then they're apt to listen.
Right.
You know, and so
Right.
use your influence to correct them.
Right. So yeah, exactly. You asked me
I
the
guess I
question.
answered the question.
You did. You didn't give me an opportunity. But yes,
Well, go ahead
but
and
yes,
share.
you do. First of all, because the scripture says, "By loving kindness have I drawn you," and then
Yeah.
also also tells us that we need to be seasoned in our words.
Right.
So we have to be because you can get somebody to do what you need them to do,
Right.
by how you present it to them.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, you correct them in love. You know what I'm saying? And then if it's something major, then you begin to seek. You know, if it's something that need to be corrected on the spot, of course you make the correction. You make it in love. Even the things that may be something major, you seek God.
Right.
You pray and you seek God. Okay, God, how do you want me to approach? How do you want me to approach this? Because we know this has to be approached.
Okay.
And I need to correct this. It needs to be corrected. So give me the words and the wisdom so that when I go and do the correction, because it has to be done. It has to be done.
Okay, I'm getting ready to throw you a fastball.
Okay, throw it to me.
Okay, so listen, it has to be done. It has to be corrected.
Right.
You seek God. But what if you don't? Okay, here's a scenario.
Okay, let's do
We're
it.
at the state conference or we're at our regional summit.
Right.
And there's a senior leader and you got to get some things done with the women. And there's a senior leader, because what people don't understand and don't realize, we have leaders too.
Right.
That we have to report to.
Exactly.
And so, and they want things done, and they want them done now and
Right.
done correctly.
Right.
So when you don't have time to seek God, you got to make an on-the-spot correction.
Right. Then
What do you do?
Then you make the on-the-spot correction.
Yeah.
But you make it you still do that in love.
You do it in love.
Right.
You
You pull
make the
them aside.
on-the-spot
Right.
correction.
Right.
And
And
then
you-
afterwards, you go back and you kind of critique and talk to them. Because sometimes, they feeling may be hurt because you have to get up real
Right.
quick and
And-
shift some stuff
Right.
and to take care of the leader, our leaders. And then they feelings may be hurt a little bit. And so then you have to go back and correct it. Go back. I go back and I correct them and say, listen, this is why we did this, and this is how we supposed to do this. Our regional bishop here, our founder Bishop Morton is here, our presiding bishop, Bishop Walker, and his staff is here. And so, this is how we got to do things. This is how we flow.
Right.
And so then
that's good.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing to do, because just think about it. As children, remember that us as children, when we got corrected, we just don't do that.
Right.
We never got an explanation on why shouldn't I not do it? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Don't do it because if you do that, this is going to hurt you and and so on and so forth. So giving an explanation, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's important. It's
Right.
important to explain why we had to do what we did and why we had to do it so quickly.
Right.
And so it's nothing against them. It's just that, listen, we have protocol, and there's things that has to be done with the spirit, a spirit of excellence.
Right.
And we ain't got time to procrastinate. We got to get this done, and we got to get it done now.
Right.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: as a leader, what is the greatest challenge? What is the greatest challenge as a leader? One of the greatest challenges, because there's many challenges. But what is one of the challenges? One of the greatest challenges as a leader?
I think
When you let's just use Sisters Samad, the women ministry here at Spread.
Yeah, I believe the greatest challenge as a leader is having the people be committed.
Yeah.
Committed and consistent to what God has called us to do. Let's just, like we said, that's the women's ministry. Let's be consistent. Be consistent. Be committed to what God is saying we need to be doing.
So, how do we get them to be committed and consistent?
That's a great question, because I believe to be committed and be consistent, it starts with you first. Because first you have to be committed. If you are
the
really
leader, it starts with the leader first.
It starts with the leader first.
Right.
The leader has to
Lead by example. Right.
But the people, it also starts with the people first as well, because they have to first be committed and consistent with their relationship with the Lord. Because once they are committed and consistent with their relationship with the Lord, and this is what I believe, once you're consistent and you're committed, I'm in this thing, God. I'm in it until you return. Then at that point, the things that's required of me in an organization, it's going to just flow. It's going to come because I commit myself. You told me, God, you the one placed me in this ministry. So because I'm serving, and I understand I'm serving you, what I do, I'm doing it as unto you, then I'm going to be consistent and I am going to be committed in the things that the ministry is doing.
And right, and that's for the mature Christian. But what about the Christian that is immature and they're not committed to God yet? That's not where they at in their walk.
And that's where we've all been at one point.
Right, but as a leader,
so then
how do we help them? We help them by
encouraging them,
praying
for them,
praying for them. You
and keeping them We help by also keeping them accountable.
Keeping them accountable, but that has to have a relationship.
Right.
So you have to have a relationship with the people that you're trying to lead.
Right.
And so that's what I was really trying to home in at, is that we have to have a relationship with the people that we're leading, because I see some leaders, it seems as though we don't even care about people.
Well, Pastor, you know what? We have to have a relationship with the people that we're leading. I agree. But even in that relationship with the people that you're leading, it still goes back to that individual.
Right.
It still goes back to that.
Exactly.
I mean,
that
you can
individual,
have
that individual they have responsibility.
Right.
And but we, as a good leader, our job is to come along beside them and encourage them and help them and love on them and pray with them and for them. And sometimes that calls for an individual sacrifice.
Right.
Sometimes that calls for counseling. I mean, individual sacrificing, and so we have to we're in the people business.
Exactly.
And so we have to deal with people. We're in the developing people business. And as leaders of leaders, we develop leaders.
Okay, let me
ask
you a question.
And that is very sometimes challenging.
Right. Question for you.
Yes,
so we're
ma'am.
in the people developing business, and
So
I agree.
Okay, let me stop you right here. Are we asking each other questions? That's what we're into now.
I got a question for you, Pastor.
So
we're in the people developing business, and I agree. So at what point? Because you can
sound
try
like
to.
you're trying to throw me a fastball.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
So at what point that the development, when you see that you get to a point where the person just do not want to be developed, at what do you do at that point?
At that point, you call them in and you have a conversation with them and say, listen, I don't think that it's your season to lead at this time in your life. I mean, we've had to have that conversation with some leaders, and thank you, but we maybe this ain't your area, because when things are not working out the way they should, and you done gave them chance after chance after chance, and maybe you need to trade. Maybe they're in the wrong area, and so maybe they need to move to another area where they can be effective. Okay, because we don't waste time. We don't have time to waste. Time don't belong to us, and so we don't have time to waste. And so after we give you an opportunity to lead and lead and lead, and then you're just not. For whatever reason, you just can't get there, where we need you to be with the ministry that you're leading, then it's obvious that it's not your season to lead, not in this season of your life.
Right.
Not saying that you're never going to be the leader of that particular ministry, but it's just maybe you got too much going on in your personal life where you can't make the time or the sacrifice to be the leader in this ministry in this season of your life.
Right.
And so you have to have that hard, grown folk conversation. It's not a pleasant conversation sometimes. Sometimes folk get mad and leave, but as a leader, you have to be able to make hard decisions.
Right.
And unapologetic hard decisions, because
Right.
there is a task that must be accomplished. You making this decision for the betterment of the ministry, the organization, the ministry team, and so
and that particular person.
And right, because they're going to have to give an account.
Right.
And so
preferably that decision and having that hard conversation would encourage them to grow.
yes.
Encourage you to stop and look at yourself, because a lot of times we don't want to look at ourselves. It's always somebody else.
Right.
And it's never us.
Right.
And so that allows, preferably it would allow them to look at themselves and say, okay, I never looked at it like that, but yeah.
And so that lets you know that they immature.
Right.
And so it's okay to be immature. It's just not okay to stay immature.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's okay to be. Because when we're coming in from the world, we don't know.
Right.
We haven't been taught. When we don't
Right.
have a relationship with God, we're immature.
Right.
And we all have been immature at some point.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's not good to stay immature.
Right.
Okay? It's okay to be immature. Come in. In fact, I'd rather you come in off the street immature
so you can
that
be
we
taught.
can right.
Yeah.
So I don't have to deprogram
Yeah.
you from your last. Well, in the last church I
Right,
did this,
right,
in the
right.
church before that I did this. So I don't have to
We used to
deprogram
do
you
it
from
like
all of
this,
that.
and we used to do it like that.
all of that.
And
Yeah,
this is how we do what we.
yeah. So come in straight off the street, and then
Right.
we can teach you, and you know how to
Right.
how to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Listen, I just want to drop this. I've heard people get up in pastor's anniversary, and I'm not talking about nobody now. I'm not picking at nobody. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about. But you have leaders that'll get up at the pastor's anniversary and look at the pastors and say, well, we ain't always seen eye to eye. We done bumped heads. And what you're doing, you're telling on yourself. You're
Right.
saying, listen, Pastor, I've been disobedient.
Right.
I've been hard-headed. That's
I
what
haven't
you.
been submissive.
I haven't been submissive. That's
Yeah.
what you're really saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's not
And the people that are mature picks up on that.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, listen, we got to go, but spread the word ministry 6206 Northwest Ferris Avenue. Right here in Lawton, America, Lawton, Oklahoma. The easiest way to get to us is just go to Applebee's on Cash Road. Right across the street is 63rd Street. Come down 63rd Street. You want to come south on 63rd Street, you'll run right into the back of the church. And so we would love to see your face here in the place. And so until then, just know that we are healthy, wealthy, and wise. Also declare over your life that the rest of this day shall be the best of this day, and the rest of this week shall be the best of this week, and the rest of this month shall be the best of this month, and the rest of this year shall be the best of this year, and the rest of your life shall be the best of your life. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you.
Amen.
Until the next time.
Come on, that's it. Tell 'em. Everything attached to you wish. Now just tell them, say, it's your win.